Captain Hyunwoo Kim stared at the strange signal on his screen. His small ship, the Horizon's Edge, was far from any known colony. Out here in the empty space between stars, nothing should be sending signals. But there it was, weak but steady, calling out in the darkness. So-young, what do you think? He asked his engineer. Park So-young was bent over her console, trying to make sense of the readings. It's definitely artificial, Captain, she said, but it's not like any signal I've seen before. The pattern is old, really old, maybe 200 years or more. Jae-min Lee looked up from his weapons station. Could be a trap. Pirates sometimes use fake distress signals to lure ships. In the middle of nowhere? Asked Yoonji Choi from her navigation post. We're 3 weeks from the nearest trade route. No pirate would wait out here. Hyunwoo made his decision. Set course for the signal. But keep the shields ready just in case. The Horizon's Edge turned toward the signal source. It took 6 hours to reach it, and what they found made everyone stare in wonder. Floating in space was the biggest ship any of them had ever seen. It was easily 5 times larger than their research vessel, maybe 10 times, but it looked wrong somehow, different from any ship design they knew. Those markings, So-young whispered. Are those Earth symbols? Hyunwoo leaned forward. The hull was dark and scarred, but he could make out faded writing. U.S. Defiance, he read aloud. United Earthship, but that's impossible. Earth stopped building ships like this centuries ago. The ship was clearly old. Its design was simple and brutal, with thick armor plating and no elegant curves. Modern ships were sleek and beautiful, but this one looked like it was built for war and nothing else. Large gun barrels stuck out from its hull like the spines of some metal beast. Life support shows 0, Yoonji reported, but there's still power in some sections. How is that possible after all this time? Earth engineering, So-young said with respect. They built things to last back then. Before we learned alien technology. Hyunwoo stood up. We're going aboard. So-young, grab your tools. Jaemin, bring weapons. Hyunji, monitor from here and watch for any other ships. Should we report this to the Colonial Authority? Hyunji asked. Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first. The airlock connected with a solid clank. Ancient Earth airlocks were simple but reliable. As they stepped inside, emergency lights flickered on, sensing their presence. The corridors were wide and functional, with no decoration. Everything was built for purpose, not beauty. The air is stale but breathable, So-young said, checking her scanner. The ship has been keeping minimal life support active all this time. They made their way deeper into the ship. The walls were covered with warning signs in Old Earth languages: English, Korean, Chinese, Spanish. Hyunwoo could read most of them. Authorized personnel only. Weapons storage. Reactor core, danger. This was a military ship, Jaemin said, running his hand along the wall. Look at this armor thickness. It's solid metal, not energy shields. They found the bridge after 20 minutes of walking. It was huge compared to modern ship bridges, with dozens of stations and screens. In the center was a command chair that looked more like a throne. Everything was dark except for one small console that blinked steadily. So-young approached it carefully. It's the AI core. Still active after all these years. Can you wake it up? Hyunwoo asked. I think so. But Captain, if this ship is as old as it looks, the AI might not recognize us as friendly. Try it. So-young connected her portable computer to the ancient console. Lines of code scrolled across her screen as she worked. After several minutes, the bridge suddenly came alive. Lights blazed on, screens activated, and a deep voice filled the air. Unknown personnel detected. State your authorization codes. Hyunwoo stepped forward. I am Captain Kim Hyunwoo of the Earth Colonial Research Service. The ship appears to be abandoned. There was a pause. Then the voice spoke again, warmer this time. Earth Colonial Service recognized. Welcome aboard the U.S. Defiance. I am Aegis 7, ship's artificial intelligence. Current date request. Standard calendar year 2387, Hyunwoo replied. Another pause. Longer this time. This unit has been inactive for 247 years, 3 months, 12 days. Mission status, unknown. Warning. Hostile alien forces detected in this sector during last active period. What hostile forces? Jaemin asked. Velthrian Empire vessels. Large fleet presence. This unit was conducting deep reconnaissance when damage forced emergency shutdown. Hyunwoo felt a chill. The Velthrian Empire was the most powerful force in the galaxy. For the past 50 years, they had been slowly taking over human colonies, claiming humans were too primitive to govern themselves. Aegis, what was your mission? Classified. However, given current circumstances, this unit can reveal Operation Broken Chain, deep strike mission against Velthrian forward bases, mission incomplete due to battle damage. So Young was studying her scanners. Captain, this ship's reactor is starting to come online. The AI is activating ship systems. Is that safe? The reactor design is ancient but solid. It should be fine. But Captain, the power output readings. This ship has more firepower than our entire colonial fleet. Suddenly, Yunji's voice crackled over their communicators. Captain, we have incoming ships. 3 large vessels, Velthrian design. They're demanding we surrender the derelict. Hyunwoo looked around the bridge. Aegis, can this ship fight? Ship status, 73% operational. Weapon systems online. Defensive systems online. This unit is ready for combat operations, Captain. How many enemy ships? Sensors detect 3 heavy cruisers and 12 fighter craft. Enemy force assessment manageable. Jamin stared at the tactical display. Manageable? That's enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Affirmative. However, enemy vessels utilize standard galactic technology, energy shields, plasma weapons, lightweight hull construction. This unit is designed for engagement with such targets. The communications channel crackled. Human vessel, you will surrender the ancient ship immediately. You are outgunned and outmatched. Hyunwoo looked at his crew. So Young nodded firmly. Jamin checked his sidearm. Through the bridge windows, they could see the sleek Velthrian ships approaching, their hulls gleaming with energy fields. Aegis, Hyunwoo said quietly. Show them what Earth engineering can do. With pleasure, Captain. Bringing main weapons online. Target acquisition in progress. This unit recommends you secure for combat operations. The ancient warship began to hum with power. After more than 2 centuries of sleep, the UES Defiance was waking up. And it was angry. The Velthrian ships spread out in perfect formation, their hulls shining like silver knives against the stars. Admiral Kethvar commanded the fleet from his flagship, confident in his superior technology. These humans had found some old wreck, but it could not possibly threaten his modern warships. Human Captain, Kethvar's voice echoed through the Defiance's bridge. You have 30 seconds to abandon that relic and surrender. We will not ask again. Hyunwoo looked at his crew. So Young was working frantically at her console, trying to understand the ship's systems. Jamin stood ready at what looked like a weapons station. The ancient controls were covered in Earth military symbols that he was slowly figuring out. Aegis, Hyunwoo said quietly. What are our chances? Analyzing enemy vessels, the AI replied. Its voice was calm, almost bored. Velthrian heavy cruisers, sovereign class. Energy shields rated for plasma weapons. Hull composition, lightweight ceramic composite. Weapons, standard galactic plasma cannons. The main screen showed detailed scans of the enemy ships. They were beautiful in their own way, all flowing lines and glowing energy fields. Everything about them screamed advanced technology. Threat assessment minimal, Aegis continued. Enemy vessels are optimized for combat against other energy-based weapons systems. They will be vulnerable to kinetic bombardment. Kinetic what? So Young asked. Old Earth military doctrine, Aegis explained. Why use complex energy weapons when a large piece of metal moving very fast will do the job better? Jamin was studying the weapons console. The symbols were different from modern designs, but he was starting to understand them. Captain, these aren't plasma cannons or laser batteries. These are railguns? Correct. Electromagnetic mass drivers, primary ammunition, tungsten penetrator rods, 500 kilograms each, accelerated to 15% light speed. So Young's eyes went wide. That's impossible. The power requirements alone. This vessel carries 3 fusion reactors specifically designed for weapons power. Earth military engineers believed in overwhelming firepower. The Velthrian ships were getting closer. Hyunwoo could see their weapons charging, energy building up in their elegant gun barrels. They looked like they could destroy anything. Time's up, humans, Admiral Kethvar announced. Prepare to be boarded. Aegis, Hyunwoo said firmly. Open fire. The AI's response was immediate. Engaging targets. All hands brace for recoil. The ship shuddered as massive amounts of power flowed to the weapon systems. On the main guns, electromagnetic coils charged up with a deep humming sound that seemed to shake the entire vessel. Jamin watched the targeting system lock onto the lead Velthrian cruiser. Main battery firing, Aegis announced. The sound was nothing like modern weapons. Instead of the clean hum of energy weapons, there was a tremendous crack that echoed through the ship's hull. Through the windows, they could see a brief flash as the railgun fired. The tungsten rod was invisible to the naked eye, moving too fast to see. But its effect on the Velthrian cruiser was immediate and devastating. The projectile punched through the energy shields like they weren't there. Energy shields were designed to deflect plasma and lasers, not solid matter moving at incredible speed. The rod hit the cruiser's hull and kept going. It tore through the lightweight ceramic armor, through the ship's interior and out the other side. The beautiful alien vessel simply came apart, explosions rippling along its length as critical systems were destroyed. First target destroyed, Aegis reported calmly. Acquiring second target. Admiral Kethvar stared in shock at his tactical display. One of his cruisers had just been destroyed in a single shot by a weapon he didn't understand. All ships evasive maneuvers. Return fire. The remaining Velthrian ships opened up with their plasma cannons. Brilliant beams of superheated gas struck the Defiance's hull, but instead of cutting through like they should have, the plasma just splashed against the thick armor plating. No damage to report, Aegis said. Enemy weapons ineffective against tungsten carbide composite armor. So Young was amazed. The armor isn't trying to stop the energy. It's just absorbing it and spreading the heat. Simple but effective. The second Velthrian cruiser tried to run, but Aegis had already calculated its course. Another railgun fired and another impossible shot punched through the fleeing ship. This time the tungsten rod hit the reactor section, and the cruiser vanished in a brief star as its power core exploded. 2 down, Jamin reported, starting to understand his console. 12 fighters incoming. The Velthrian fighters were small and fast, designed for precision attacks. They swarmed around the Defiance like angry insects, their pilots confident that their speed would protect them. Activating point defense grid, Aegis announced. Suddenly, the space around the Defiance filled with thousands of small flashes. The ship's hull was covered with tiny railguns, each one firing metal fragments at incredible speed. It wasn't precision shooting, it was area denial. The fighters flew into a cloud of metal moving at tremendous velocity. The elegant alien fighters simply disintegrated. Their lightweight construction couldn't withstand the brutal kinetic impacts. In less than 10 seconds, all 12 were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Admiral Kethvar's flagship was now alone, its beautiful hull scarred by fragments from the destroyed fighters. The Admiral stared at his screens in disbelief. A single primitive human ship had just destroyed his entire escort in under a minute. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Our technology is superior. Our weapons are more advanced." His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings. "Admiral, that ship, it's not using any technology we recognize. No energy shields, no plasma weapons, no gravitic drives, just metal and explosives." "Retreat," Kethvar ordered. "Full speed back to Imperial space. We must warn the Empire." But Aegis was already tracking the fleeing ship, enemy flagship attempting to withdraw. "Shall I pursue, Captain?" Hyunwoo thought for a moment. "Let them go. Let them tell their Empire what happened here." "Understood," standing down from combat alert. As the Velthrian flagship disappeared into hyperspace, So-Young was studying the battle recordings. "Captain, do you understand what just happened? This ship just proved that our old Earth technology can defeat the most advanced fleet in the galaxy." Jamin was grinning as he looked at the weapons readouts. "Those aliens have been telling us for decades that humans are primitive. Turns out they were right, and that's exactly why we won." "Aegis," Hyunwoo said. "How many ships like this did Earth build?" The Independence class consisted of 12 vessels. This unit is number 7 of that series. Current status of sister ships, unknown. Hyunwoo looked out at the debris field that had once been a Velthrian fleet. For the first time in decades, human ships had defeated Imperial forces. But this was just the beginning. Aegis set course for the nearest human colony. "It's time to wake up the rest of our sleeping giants." "Course plotted, Captain. Welcome to the revolution." Admiral Kethvar's flagship limped back to Imperial space, its hull scarred and its crew shaken. The proud Velthrian officer had never fled from battle before, but what he had witnessed was beyond his understanding. A single human ship had destroyed his entire fleet using weapons that shouldn't have worked. In the Imperial capital, High Admiral Zeftal studied the battle recordings with growing concern. The footage showed plasma cannons striking solid armor and accomplishing nothing. It showed energy shields failing to stop simple metal projectiles. Most disturbing of all, it showed Valthrian ships, the finest in the galaxy, being torn apart by primitive kinetic weapons. "This cannot be accurate," Zeftal said to his staff. "Our technology is thousands of years ahead of these humans." "The recordings are genuine, High Admiral," his intelligence officer replied. "We've analyzed them thoroughly. The human ship used no energy weapons, no gravitic shields, no quantum computers, just metal projectiles and chemical explosives. And it worked," Zeftal said grimly. "Better than worked. It was a massacre." Meanwhile, the UES Defiance was traveling toward Kepler Station, humanity's largest remaining colony. In the weeks since their first battle, Hyunwoo and his crew had learned more about their ancient ship. Aegis had been teaching them about old Earth military doctrine, and the lessons were eye-opening. The philosophy was simple, Aegis explained as they gathered in the ship's war room. Other species developed elegant solutions to complex problems. Humans developed overwhelming solutions to simple problems. So Young was studying technical manuals that were older than her grandmother. These weapons designs are so basic. No quantum targeting, no energy conversion matrices, no gravitic manipulation, just magnets and metal. Yet they work better than anything the Empire has, Jamin pointed out.
He had become the ship's tactical officer,
learning to use weapon systems that operated on principles the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Yunji was monitoring Imperial communications from their small ship, which was docked in the Defiance's shuttle bay. "Captain, I'm picking up massive fleet movements in Imperial space. They're gathering ships from across the galaxy. How many?" Hyunwoo asked. "Hundreds, maybe thousands, and they're all heading toward human colonies." Aegis processed this information quickly. Analysis. The Empire views this incident as an existential threat. If primitive human technology can defeat advanced Imperial ships, it undermines their entire power structure. Hyunwoo nodded grimly. "They're coming to crush us before word spreads. How long until they reach the nearest human world?" 3 weeks at maximum Imperial fleet speed, Aegis calculated. However, this unit can provide an alternative strategy. The main screen showed a tactical map of human space. Red markers indicated Imperial fleet positions, while blue dots showed human colonies. The red markers vastly outnumbered the blue ones. "What alternative?" Hyunwoo asked. "This vessel was designed for asymmetric warfare, fighting when outnumbered and outgunned. Standard tactics include technological surprise, mobility advantage, and force multiplication through fear." So Young leaned forward. "Force multiplication through fear?" "Correct. One ship can defeat many if the enemy becomes afraid to fight. This unit recommends a series of lightning strikes against isolated Imperial forces. Over the following days, Aegis put its plan into action. The Defiance would appear without warning at Imperial patrol stations, destroy everything in sight, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Each attack was swift, brutal, and impossible to counter. At the Rigel mining station, 3 Imperial corvettes were providing security. The Defiance appeared behind an asteroid and opened fire before the aliens even knew they were under attack. Tungsten rods punched through the small ships like arrows through paper. At the Beta Centauri checkpoint, a squad of Imperial fighters was investigating reports of a ghost ship. They found the Defiance waiting for them, its point defense grid already charged. The fighters were destroyed in seconds, torn apart by clouds of metal fragments. Each victory sent shockwaves through Imperial command. Ship captains who had never known fear began requesting backup for routine patrols. Crews that had considered humans barely above animals now jumped at shadows. "The psychological effect is exceeding projections," Aegis reported as they traveled between targets. "Imperial morale is declining rapidly. Many ships are refusing to operate alone." Jamin was studying the tactical reports. "We're not just winning battles. We're making them afraid to fight." But the Empire was learning too. High Admiral Zeftal had gathered the largest fleet in Imperial history, over 200 ships of every class. He was done underestimating the humans. This time, he would bring enough firepower to reduce entire star systems to dust. "No more small engagements," he told his captains. "We stay together as one massive fleet. When we find this human ghost ship, we destroy it with overwhelming force." The final confrontation came at Kepler Station. The massive Imperial fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a metal storm, their ships forming perfect battle formations. Thousands of plasma cannons powered up. ready to sterilize the human colony and any ship that tried to defend it. Admiral Mi Ray Kang commanded the Colonial Defense Force from her flagship, the Soul. She had 30 ships to face 200 Imperial vessels. By any normal calculation, it was hopeless. Then the UES Defiance appeared beside her fleet, its ancient hull scarred but intact. Hyunwoo opened a channel to the colonial fleet. "Admiral Kang, this is Captain Kim. We've brought you a gift." "What kind of gift, Captain?" "The technical specifications for every weapon system on this ship. Your engineers have had 2 weeks to study them. Are you ready to show the Empire what human engineering can do?" Admiral Kang smiled grimly. Across the human fleet, ships that had been retrofitted with primitive kinetic weapons powered up their new gun systems. Colonial engineers had worked around the clock to install railguns and solid armor, plating on anything that could fly. High Admiral Zeftel watched the human fleet with contempt. 30 ships against 200. The humans were brave, he would give them that, but bravery wouldn't save them. "All ships, open fire," he commanded. "Destroy them all." The space between the fleets lit up with plasma fire. Hundreds of energy beams lanced out from Imperial ships, striking the human vessels. But instead of cutting through as expected, the beams splashed harmlessly against thick armor plating. Then the human ships returned fire. Railguns that shouldn't exist launched projectiles that couldn't be stopped. Tungsten rods traveling at impossible speeds punched through energy shields and ceramic hulls. Aegis coordinated the human attack with cold precision. Target their command ships first. Disrupt their formation. Force them to fight as individuals instead of a coordinated fleet. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Imperial ships designed for elegant dueling with energy weapons found themselves facing an enemy that fought like ancient Earth warriors, brutal, direct, and utterly without mercy. When it was over, the space around Kepler Station was filled with Imperial wreckage. The few surviving alien ships fled in panic, their crews spreading word throughout the galaxy. The humans were no longer the helpless primitives they had once been. The age of Imperial dominance was ending, and it was ending at the hands of warriors who had remembered how to fight. The Imperial capital world of Velthros had never seen such chaos. Emergency meetings ran day and night as the Empire's leadership tried to understand how their greatest fleet had been destroyed by primitive humans. High Admiral Zeftal sat in the War Council chamber, watching battle recordings for the 100th time. "Show me the moment their shields failed," he demanded. The tactical officer replayed the footage. Imperial plasma cannons fired their brilliant beams at human ships, striking them directly. But the energy just splashed against thick metal armor, accomplishing nothing. "The shields didn't fail," the officer said quietly. "They don't have shields. That's just solid metal plating. Impossible. No civilization fights without energy shields. It's been the standard for over 1,000 years. The humans never received that technology, High Admiral. When we first contacted them, we decided they were too primitive to share advanced sciences with. They kept using their old methods." Zeftal stared at the screen. An Imperial cruiser exploded as a simple metal rod punched through its hull. The rod was nothing special, just tungsten accelerated by magnetic fields, but it worked better than the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. "Our entire military doctrine is based on fighting enemies who think like us," he realized. "Energy weapons against energy shields. Plasma cannons against gravitic barriers. We've forgotten how to fight anything else." Across Imperial space, the same conversations were happening. Military academies scrambled to find ancient texts about kinetic weapons. Engineers studied wreckage from human attacks, trying to understand how such simple devices could be so effective. The truth was disturbing. For centuries, the galaxy's civilizations had engaged in an arms race of increasing complexity. Energy shields led to better energy weapons, which led to stronger shields, which led to even better weapons. Everyone assumed this was progress. The humans had been left out of this arms race. Considered too primitive to matter, they had been ignored while the rest of the galaxy moved on to more elegant solutions. But elegant didn't always mean better. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiance, Hyunwoo and his crew were exploring their ship more thoroughly. What they found amazed them. Aegis led them through sections they hadn't seen before, revealing the true scope of old Earth military engineering. "This is the manufacturing bay," Aegis explained as they entered a massive chamber filled with complex machinery. "This vessel can produce ammunition, spare parts, and even weapons modifications from raw materials." So-Young ran her hands over the equipment in wonder. Adaptive manufacturing. You could build anything in here. Correct. Earth military doctrine emphasized self-sufficiency. A ship might be alone behind enemy lines for months or years. It needed to maintain and upgrade itself. Jamin was studying weapon schematics on a nearby console. These aren't just railguns. There are designs for missile systems, chemical explosives, even nuclear warheads. The Independence class carried multiple weapon types for different situations. Kinetic penetrators for armored targets, explosive warheads for formations, nuclear devices for capital ships. Yunji looked up from her datapad. Aegis, how many other ships like this exist? 11 sister ships were constructed. Current status unknown. However, this unit has detected faint signals from 2 vessels in distant systems. Yunwu felt a thrill of hope. Can we find them? Affirmative. However, reactivating multiple Independence-class vessels would require significant resources and trained personnel. Back in Imperial space, the crisis was deepening. Reports came in daily of human raids on Imperial facilities. Each attack followed the same pattern. A mysterious ship would appear, destroy everything in sight with kinetic weapons, and vanish before help could arrive. The psychological effect was devastating. Imperial crews who had never known defeat now requested backup for routine missions. Ship captains who had felt invincible began to doubt their technology and training. "We're losing control," Admiral Kethvar reported to the War Council. "Our forces are afraid to engage the humans. They're calling their ship a ghost that can't be destroyed." "Superstitious nonsense," Zeftal replied, but even he felt the doubt creeping in. "How do you fight an enemy that your weapons can't hurt?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yilath, the Empire's chief weapons researcher, had been studying captured human technology. What she discovered changed everything. "The problem isn't that their weapons are better," she announced to the Council. "The problem is that they're using completely different physics principles." She activated a holographic display showing energy weapon interactions. "Our plasma cannons work by exciting particles to extreme temperatures. Our shields work by deflecting those same excited particles. It's an elegant system." The display changed to show kinetic weapons. Human weapons simply throw heavy objects very fast. There's nothing elegant about it, but there's also nothing our defenses can stop. "Our shields are designed for energy, not matter. So we adapt," Zeftal said. "Build new shields that can stop kinetic projectiles." It's not that simple. To stop a tungsten rod moving at 15% light speed, you'd need shields that consume more power than most ships can generate. The humans solved this problem by not using shields at all. They just built thicker armor. Then we build kinetic weapons of our own. Dr. Yilath shook her head. "Our ship designs won't support them. Kinetic weapons require massive power systems and heavy structural reinforcement. Our vessels are built for grace and efficiency, not brute force." The terrible truth was becoming clear. The Empire's technological superiority was actually a weakness. They had become so specialized in energy-based warfare that they couldn't adapt to anything else. On the Defiance, Aegis was teaching the human crew about asymmetric warfare principles. The key is not to fight the enemy's strengths, but to exploit their weaknesses. The Empire expects energy weapons and shields. They have no defense against kinetic bombardment. But they'll adapt eventually, Hyunwoo pointed out. "They'll figure out how to stop our weapons." "Correct. Which is why this unit recommends accelerating operations. Strike hard and fast before they can adjust their tactics." So-Young had been studying the ship's sensor logs. "Aegis, I've been looking at the Imperial fleet compositions. They're pulling ships from across the galaxy to defend their core worlds." Affirmative. Standard Imperial doctrine when facing an unknown threat. But that means their frontier forces are weakened. The outer colonies are barely defended. Aegis processed this information. "Excellent tactical observation. A campaign against weakly defended targets would force the Empire to spread their remaining forces thin." Jamin grinned as he understood the strategy. "We make them choose. Defend everything and defend nothing well, or concentrate their forces and leave most of their territory unprotected." Precisely. This is how asymmetric warfare functions. A smaller force can defeat a larger one by forcing the enemy to fight on unfavorable terms. Yunji was monitoring Imperial communications. "Captain, I'm detecting something interesting. The Empire is recalling ships from the frontier worlds to protect their core systems. But there's resistance from local commanders." "What kind of resistance?" "Some Imperial governors are refusing to give up their defense fleets." They're more afraid of human raids than they are of court-martial. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. The Empire is starting to crack. Fear is making them fight each other instead of us. Aegis agreed. The psychological phase of the campaign is proceeding optimally. Imperial morale continues to decline while human confidence increases. As the Defiance prepared for its next mission, Hyunwoo reflected on how quickly everything had changed. A few weeks ago, humans had been helpless before Imperial might. Now the galaxy's greatest military force was afraid of a single old Earth warship. But this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, other Independence-class vessels waited to be awakened. And when they were, the Empire would learn what happened when humanity remembered how to fight. The second Independence-class ship was found drifting in the Vega system, its hull dark but intact. The UES Retribution had been sleeping for 2.5 centuries, waiting for someone to wake it up. When Hyunwoo and his crew brought it back online, its AI-designated Guardian 3 greeted them like old friends. Aegis 7. Status report, Guardian requested over the communication link. Operational and combat effective, Aegis replied. Empire military forces have been engaged with favorable results. Excellent. Guardian 3 is ready to resume operations. Within days, human space had 2 ancient warships instead of 1. The Retribution was commanded by Captain Dalho Park, a Colonial Defense Force officer who had volunteered to learn the old Earth systems. His crew included So-min Han as chief engineer and Tae-young Kim as weapons officer. The psychological effect on the Empire was immediate. Bad enough to face 1 impossible human ship. Now there were 2, striking at different targets across Imperial space. Panic spread through alien fleets as crews realized they might encounter these ghost ships anywhere. High Admiral Zeftal was barely sleeping. Every few hours brought news of another Imperial facility destroyed, another fleet scattered by kinetic weapons that shouldn't exist. His staff had given up trying to predict where the humans would strike next. They're not following any pattern we can recognize, his intelligence officer reported. Sometimes they attack military targets, sometimes supply depots. Sometimes they just appear and disappear without firing a shot. Psychological warfare, Zeftal realized. They're making us afraid of shadows. But the Empire was finally beginning to adapt. Dr. Yeleth had developed new defensive technologies specifically designed to counter kinetic weapons. Gravitic barriers that could deflect solid projectiles, reinforced armor plating, even early prototypes of their own railgun systems. We're installing the new defenses on our fastest ships, she reported to the War Council. We can't retrofit the entire fleet, but we can create hunter squadrons specifically designed to fight these human ships. Admiral Kethvar commanded the first hunter squadron. His ships were ugly compared to traditional Imperial vessels, thick-hulled, heavily armored, bristling with experimental weapons. They looked more like human ships than alien ones, and that hurt Imperial pride. Beauty is secondary to function, Kethvar told his crews. These humans have taught us that lesson the hard way. The first test came when his squadron encountered the UES Retribution near a mining colony. Captain Dalho Park opened fire with his main batteries, expecting the usual easy victory. But this time, the tungsten rods were deflected by gravitic barriers designed specifically to stop them. Direct hit, no penetration, Tae-young Kim reported from his weapons station. They've adapted to our tactics. Then we adapt too, Dalho replied. Guardian, switch to explosive warheads. The Retribution's missile tubes opened, launching nuclear-tipped projectiles at the Imperial ships. But these weren't guided missiles. They were simple bombs with massive yields, designed to create expanding spheres of destruction that no ship could avoid. Kethvar watched in horror as one of his cruisers vanished in a brief star. All ships, maximum dispersion. Don't let them bracket us. The battle that followed was different from previous engagements. The Imperial ships could now withstand some kinetic hits, but they had no defense against nuclear weapons. The Retribution destroyed half the squadron before jumping away, leaving Kethvar to report another human victory. Back on the Defiance, Aegis was analyzing the engagement. Imperial defensive capabilities are improving. They are learning to counter our standard tactics. So we changed tactics, Hyunwoo said. What other weapon systems do we have? This vessel carries 12 different weapon types. Kinetic penetrators were merely the most efficient against initial Imperial defenses. So Young was studying the technical manuals. Plasma mines, fusion torpedoes, antimatter charges. Captain. Some of these weapons are incredibly dangerous, even to us. The Empire has forced this escalation, Hyun-woo replied grimly. Aegis prepare the manufacturing bay to produce fusion torpedoes. Across human space, more changes were happening. The third Independence-class ship, the UES Vengeance, was found and reactivated. Then the fourth, the UES Fury. Each ship brought new capabilities and new terror to Imperial forces. The Vengeance specialized in stealth attacks, appearing without warning inside Imperial formations. The Fury carried experimental weapons that could crack planet-sized asteroids. Together with the Defiance and Retribution, they formed a small fleet that punched far above its weight. Admiral Mi-Ray Kang was coordinating human forces from Kepler Station, which had become the unofficial capital of human resistance. Her fleet had grown as more colonies joined the fight, but she knew they were still vastly outnumbered. We can't win a conventional war, she told her staff, but we don't need to. We just need to make the Empire's control too expensive to maintain. The strategy was working. Imperial forces were being pulled back from frontier worlds to defend core systems. Alien populations who had never questioned Imperial rule began to wonder if their protectors were as invincible as they claimed. On the Imperial capital world, political chaos was spreading. The Emperor himself had demanded answers about how a few primitive human ships could humiliate the galaxy's greatest military force. Perhaps, suggested one brave counselor, we should consider negotiating with the humans. Grant them independence in exchange for ending their attacks. High Admiral Zeftal was horrified. Negotiate? With primitives who use metal clubs instead of energy weapons. The Empire does not surrender to barbarians. But privately, even Zeftal was beginning to doubt. His fleets were being systematically destroyed by weapons that violated every principle of modern warfare. How do you fight an enemy who ignores all the rules? The answer came during the Battle of Procyon, where the 4 human ships faced the largest Imperial fleet ever assembled. Over 500 ships surrounded the ancient Earth vessels, every weapon trained on them. Now we have them, Zeftal declared from his flagship. No matter how primitive their weapons, they cannot fight 500 ships at once. But the humans had one more surprise. As the Imperial fleet closed in, the Independence-class ships activated a weapon system that hadn't been used in over 2 centuries. Their manufacturing bays began producing antimatter warheads, weapons so dangerous that most civilizations had banned them. All Imperial ships. This is Captain Kim of the UES Defiance, Hyun-woo broadcast on all frequencies. You have 30 seconds to withdraw. After that, we will demonstrate why Earth banned these weapons ourselves. Zeftal laughed. Empty threats. All ships, open fire! The response was immediate and devastating. Fusion torpedoes carrying antimatter warheads struck the Imperial formation. When matter and antimatter met, the explosions were visible from 3 star systems away. Entire squadrons simply ceased to exist, converted to pure energy in an instant. The surviving Imperial ships fled in panic, their crews spreading word of weapons that could destroy fleets with single shots. The myth of Imperial invincibility was shattered completely. In the aftermath, as debris from 500 ships drifted through space, Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Defiance and contemplated what they had accomplished. The Empire's military power was broken, their will to fight humans destroyed by fear of ancient Earth weapons. Aegis, he said quietly, send a message to the Imperial capital. Tell them that Earth is willing to discuss terms. What terms, Captain? Complete independence for all human colonies. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty, and a promise that no Imperial ship will ever threaten human space again. And if they refuse? Hyun-woo looked out at the wreckage of the Imperial fleet. Then we find the rest of our sister ships and remind them why the galaxy used to fear humanity. The age of empire was ending. The age of humanity had begun. And it had started with the awakening of 4 old ships that refused to forget how to fight. High Admiral Zeftal's final report to the Emperor was simple. The humans have won. We can either accept their terms or watch our entire civilization burn. For the first time in galactic history, the Empire chose to surrender. The humans, the primitives, the barbarians with their crude weapons and simple tactics had done the impossible. They had defeated the most advanced military force in the galaxy by remembering that sometimes the best solution is not the most elegant one, but the one that works. And in the depths of space, 8 more Independence-class ships waited in the darkness, ready to wake up if anyone ever forgot that lesson again.